So welcome everyone, or Shio, which is hello in Cherokee, as we learned in our adventure session with Cherokee Elder Gil Jackson last year. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Vaughn Shawn. I'm with the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. And many of you may know about the Appalachian Trail. The trail is a unit of our national park system and a long distance hiking trail that goes through 14 states from Georgia all the way up to Maine. Our organization, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, is a nonprofit that works with hundreds of partners like the National Park Service and thousands of volunteers to make sure that the trail is an experience that everyone can enjoy and learn from. We're very excited to offer this virtual adventure series, which is geared for young people but is engaging for all ages and all learners. Last year, we took a hike up the trail from Georgia to Maine, exploring different subjects connected to the trail in each state with local educators and partners. This year, we're exploring cultural heritage as well as social and natural history along the AT and throughout public lands in the United States. This series has covered a wide range of topics, from how heritage and history can be expressed through art and creative writing to the importance of acknowledging native lands. Please check out the ones you may have missed on our YouTube channel, which can be found on the adventure page. Without further ado, I'm honored to introduce our speakers for this adventure session. Both of our presenters you might recognize from past adventure sessions. Today we have Jenny Siegfried joining us. When Jenny's not teaching visual art to her favorite small artists and students, her love of hiking and illustration keeps her on the trail and making art in the outdoors. She's partnered with NYC-based outdoor organizations to organize art-making experiences on local trails and was the artist in residence for the National Park Service in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in 2018, and has also lectured on the importance and value of creative experiences from city to trail at a variety of venues, including the REI Force of Nature Women's Speaker Series, also for the Appalachian Trail Conservancy and at Harvard University. This summer, she is in Pickens, South Carolina as the artist in residence for the Rensing Center. Her artwork and adventures can be found at jennysiegfried.com. Thank you for joining us, Jenny. And also we have Delia Clark. Delia Clark is based in Vermont and is a frequent trainer and facilitator in place-based education, heritage interpretation, and community engagement throughout the United States and Central and Eastern Europe for organizations that include U.S. National Park Service, the U.S. Forest Service, Appalachian Trail Conservancy, Iditarod Historic Trail Alliance, QLF, Atlantic Center for the Environment, and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. An avid hiker in the U.S. and internationally, Delia's wealth of trails management experience includes serving as a board member for Appalachian Mountain Club, stewardship council member for Appalachian Trail Conservancy, co-chair of ATC's Wild East Women, co-chair of the World Trails Network Knowledge Task Force, and a trainer for the Trail to Every Classroom, Iditarod Trail to Every Classroom, and Forest for Every Classroom for the past 15 years. Delia is co-author of several books and manuals on place-based learning in public lands, which have collectively been translated into 6 languages, and you can find that at deliaclarkconfluence.com. So we are so thrilled for you both to join us. Based on your bios, you're absolutely incredible and you bring so much enthusiasm and insight to our adventure series. And so I am going to pass it off to Jenny. Thank you.
Thank you for such a nice introduction, Vaughn, and welcome everybody. We're so happy to see you here, and we are just so honored Delia and I are both so honored to share something that we're very passionate about with you all, and we're mostly so excited to see what everybody creates, because this session was designed to present a little bit of background and history, but it's mostly designed for us to come together as a community, a virtual community, even though we're not in the same place, come together as a community and make some art today. We're going to do a little drawing. We're going to do a little creative writing. And hopefully everyone walks away from this session with a new understanding of what a nature journal is, why you should have one or why you can have one. And then also different methods you can explore the outdoors, either through art making or writing or poems or photography, just a whole wide range of creative experiences you can have outside. So before we begin, just to get our minds ready for this session and to make sure everyone is on the same page as to what our workshop is going to look like this afternoon, let me take a second to go over the different components that our session is going to be comprised of. We did our welcome. You met your presenters. You all are co-creators. We're going to take a second to talk about what a nature journal is and why it's important. Delia is going to give a little background on the historical relevance and the historical importance of nature journals and highlight some specific outdoorsmen and women who use them in their practice and how we can get inspiration from them. After that, we are going to jump right in and get creative. We're going to review a materials list that I think everyone maybe received in an email, but just now, all you need is a piece of paper and something to write with. We'll go over some more elaborate items you could gather if you'd like to. But then after that, we're just going to jump right in, and we have two activities that Delia and I are very, very excited about. We have a drawing activity titled "Where Does This Trail Lead?" And then we have a writing activity, writing down a trail. We're going to investigate first scenes from our beloved Appalachian Trail, and then we're going to look at other long distance trails in the United States and kind of explore them in different ways too. For both Delia and I, what was most important to get out of this workshop was a sense of community creativity. And so part of that is sharing out our experiences. So for both of our activities, we have a big chunk of time set apart so everyone has time and space, if they're feeling okay sharing today with us, to share with the group, which is a really wonderful thing. And then at the end, we can celebrate our learning a little bit. We have a bunch of nature journal tips and resources we'd like to leave you with. And then I think we're going to throw it back to Vaughn to close out the session. What is a nature journal? A nature journal is a place to grow your thoughts, feelings, ideas, activities, observations, and your relationship with the natural world. A nature journal can include notes, drawings, tracings, rubbings, photos, pretty much everything. We'll go into that a little bit later, especially in relation to best practices with leave no trace. We'll talk a little bit about the things that Delia and I like to include in our nature journals. Most importantly, a nature journal is a documentation of sights, smells, feelings, and it is a journal of your personal history outdoors. It's a way to record the things that you see and feel and experience, to continue processing them as a form of documentation or to share them with others. What does a nature journal look like? We wanted to include this slide just to show that a nature journal can look like anything at all. We have three very different pictures here. Very quickly, on the far left, we have what looks like a comp book that maybe some of us used in high school or college. In the middle, we have a folded piece of paper. And then on the right, we have what looks like it's maybe someone's planner. So anything that has blank space or anything that inspires you is the perfect medium to make your nature journal. So I'm going to put myself on mute and throw this back to Delia to give us a little rundown on some of our favorite historians who use nature journals.
Great. I just quickly wanted to share about some of the folks who have been enthusiastic nature journalists and have ended up changing the world because of it. A lot of you have probably heard of Henry David Thoreau. This is a picture of Walden Pond, which is right near where Jenny lives. Jenny was just there recently. And he wrote the book Walden, which was really important. He wrote over 20 other books. And his writing anticipated the whole field of ecology and history. His style is lovely, sort of personal nature observation style, which is nice. And on the next slide, you can see Jenny's painting that she made when she was last at Walden Pond. So she was there, and then she ended up sort of mirroring it in her journal. I'm going to read aloud what Henry David Thoreau said in case there are people who can't read this. I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and see if I could not learn what it had to teach and not die, discover that I had not lived. So Thoreau is inspirational. Here's somebody else. Rachel Carson. This Rachel Carson is famous for basically advancing the whole global environmental movement. Her writing, particularly her book Silent Spring, she wrote in 1962, was something that has changed the world in a really significant way. She's one of my personal heroes. Her writing is not only beautiful, but also scientifically accurate. That statue is in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and I make a pilgrimage to it every single year when I go down to my my family home down there. I have a lot of pictures of me sitting next to her on that bench with this statue. This is a picture of Sippawisset Marsh, which is a marsh right near my one of the homes that I spent time in, and she did a lot of her research in Sippawisset Marsh. I'll read you what she wrote. I saw a little one-legged sanderling hopping along, hunting food. It was amazing to see how this little fellow got about, just hopping on his good leg. It made my heart ache to think how tired his little leg must be, but his whole manner suggested a cheerfulness of spirit. So her nature journaling changed the world. And lastly, I want to share the writing of John Muir, who a lot of you have heard of. John Muir, as with a lot of other people of his generation, had some views that some of us find distasteful now, or even wildly inappropriate in terms of racism. And at the same time, he had some very powerful impact on saving large tracts of land. His nature writing had this spiritual quality and this enthusiasm that was really inspirational to readers, including presidents and congressmen, and it inspired them to take action to preserve large nature areas. This is a photo I took in Yosemite in an area that is called the John Muir Wilderness Area, named after him and preserved by him. And I'll read you a little something he wrote on the next slide. Here is a calm so deep, grasses cease waving. It's wonderful how completely everything in wild nature fits into us. So inspirational people, all of them. And what we want to do now is just look at how we can make nature journals together.
I got so excited, I forgot to unmute myself. Let's create a nature journal together. So for this section, Delia and I thought it might be nice for each of us to share select pages from our nature journal. I actually have mine here, but it's a little hard to see with the computer camera. And so we were going to share our nature journals and then jump right into gathering our materials and getting started because we have so many fun things planned. So like I showed you, this is my nature journal. It's a notebook I got at a bookstore sale, nothing special. It's actually designed to be a storyboard notebook for a filmmaker, and I turned it into my nature journal because it felt beautiful and it had nice pages. So you can see on the screen, that is a sketch that I did in California. I take notes as I'm drawing. I like to record the different colors, the main colors that I see in a scene. And I try to use my nature journal to capture a holistic view of what I'm experiencing when I'm out in the natural world or on the trail, taking notes on everything, not just the natural world, sometimes fragments of conversation. I also use a lot of accordion books. So when it expands, it kind of looks like you're walking the trail along with my drawings. And here are some of Delia's beautiful drawings.
Yeah, these are some from mine. I tend to use these little books that you can get that have blank pages, and there's that one actually. So I just sort of draw and write as I go along. I find that nature is a wonderful metaphor for a lot of things in my life. So I like to think about what, it feels like spring here. What feels like spring in my spirit? Or, as I'm looking at all of this decaying soil and old logs, what parts of me feel as though I want to slough them off? So I find nature to be a wonderful way to think about and process myself. And I think there's one more. These are both ones I did on the John Muir Trail in California. I took notes. This is a fish that my husband caught and then we ate it. So I sort of drew it right before we did that.
So beautiful. So friends, let's create a nature journal together. This is the most exciting part of this whole workshop for me, and I'm sure I can speak for Delia for her too. So let's take a second to gather our materials to make a nature journal. Like we kind of went over at the beginning, to make a nature journal, you will need paper or a book. So even though I have my personal nature journal here, I'm legit just going to use a blank piece of printer paper. Anything we cannot stress this enough, anything you have is the perfect thing as long as you feel comfortable using it today. You need writing tools. So I personally have a pencil. It could be a pencil, a pen, a marker. And then if you're feeling really inspired, especially for our drawing session, something to color with. So I have a bag here of colored pencils. You could have markers. Delia has some awesome colored pencils. Maybe you have crayons. Maybe you have a crayon. Maybe you have watercolors. The materials you have are the right materials. And we are all going to go on this journey together. I kind of chatted for a little while to make sure that everyone had enough time to get their materials together. So I'm just going to jump right over to the next slide. All right, activity number 1. What can we see on the trail? So the first thing we're going to talk about is our prompt. What can we see on the trail and what does that mean? Then we're going to do one more quick check-in to make sure that we have all of our materials and we're ready to go. We have a series of 4 photos for this activity. We'll review them all together. We have some peaceful music that we're going to turn on if our technology is cooperating. And we're just going to make art together, friends. You'll hear me describe our prompt. This is not necessarily an instructional session. Delia's writing session is not necessarily an instructional session. We really wanted the focus of our workshop today to be coming together creatively as a community. So we're going to set aside some time. We'll do a little check-in about halfway through. And then, like I mentioned, at the end of both creative sessions, we're going to have time to share, lots of time to share out because we want to see what you created. So our prompt for our drawing activity is what can we see on the trail? And so I would like to maybe rephrase that as what can we notice on the trail? Because sometimes see makes us feel like we need to create art that is maybe photographic representation of what we're looking at. And that's not what we're going for. Notice is a word that allows us to take ownership over our interpretation and think about light and details and soft lines and curves and leaves and flowers, not necessarily feel stressed about making something that looks like the photo. So just one more check-in to make sure everyone has their paper and their pencil and maybe their colors, their coloring pencils or crayons if you're so inclined. And let's take a look at our inspiration photos. I'm so excited about these. What can we see on the trail? Because unfortunately we're not all together, but wonderfully we can be all together in different places. We're not hiking right now, but we have 4 photos on the screen. that I took at different places on the Appalachian Trail. The first one is right at the juncture of Tri-Corner Knob in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. The one on the top right is one of my favorite places in the whole entire world. It's where I fell in love with the Smokies and the AT. It's in a dew knob in the Great Smoky Mountains. The bottom left is in Garrison, New York, just about an hour and a half outside of New York City. And then the bottom right is on Max Patch in North Carolina, very close to the Great Smoky Mountains too. And if you can see in the distance, two of the people are beloved ATC community members. One is our friend, Chloe De Camara, and then another is a ATC volunteer who is with me on our trail maintenance crew. So claps for them. So before we get into our art making, I'm gonna just very quickly give a little 2-second demo because I'm talking way too much and we need to get drawing. So using the top photo of the Smokies by Tri-Corner Knob as an example, what I noticed in this photo is the beautiful light that's reflecting off of the pine leaves that are closest to us in the foreground. I see a lot of Smoky Mountain wonderful fog in the distance in the background. I see that the trail kind of is going around a curve and it maybe looks like a tunnel in a lot of ways. And that's contrasted by the vertical lines of the tree trunks. These are all things I notice. Those are the things I'm going to try to record in my drawing. So again, I'm not trying to make a exact copy of the photo. What's most important for me and Delia is that everyone has space to share what they personally are interested in these photos. So everyone should pick one photo and we are going to set a timer. I think we're maybe running a little over, so I'm going to set our timer maybe for 5 minutes. And at 4 minutes, we can do a check-in just to make sure everyone's feeling good. You guys can come off mute if you'd like to. And then at 5 minutes, we will hold up and we will share out our drawings. Like I said, I think we're going to try to maybe have some relaxing music go on. But right now I'm going to mute myself. And I hope everyone has a wonderful drawing experience with me and Delia. And I literally cannot wait to see what everybody is noticing and what everybody is working towards creating.
Okay, we're going to hear some bird song.
All right, friends. I'm going to call it for our drawing session. And I'm going to share my screen again, and I'll put myself on mute so Delia can start our writing activity.
Thanks a lot. So, nature journaling often involves both drawing and writing in a combination, but we decided to separate them so that we could try both. So, our prompt in this case is going to be that I'll show you several different trails, and the question you have to decide is which trail you'd like to walk on and what you think you would see around the next corner. So you can write in just single words, you could write in sentences, you could write little phrases, you could write a haiku or a poem or just whatever comes to your mind. You can write any way at all, and then we'll share them as we did before, we'll share them with each other. So here are your trails. These are not the Appalachian Trail. Well, one of them is. These are sister trails of the Appalachian Trail. So in the top left is the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a sister of the Appalachian Trail within the National Trail System. Bottom left are some footprints leading out to the Iditarod National Scenic Trail, which is a dog sled trail that goes across the Bering Sea. This part of it. That middle one with the boardwalk is part of the Appalachian Trail in my home state of Vermont, that's accessible to people in wheelchairs or strollers or whoever. The one with the ladder is the Long Trail in Vermont, which is co-located with the Appalachian Trail. This is a really hairy part that you have to go up with a ladder, and I was hiking with a friend with a dog, and that was really challenging. It's just really steep. And on the right is the Camino de Santiago, which is a pilgrimage route that goes across northern Spain. So your writing challenge is to think about which of these you'd like to walk on and what you think you'd see right around the next corner. Let's see, in order to keep up with our time, why don't we just try to write for 3 minutes? So I'm going to put on a little music, write for 3 minutes, and I'm also going to share in the chat some other writing prompts, but I'd focus on these prompts for now. finish the thought that you're on. I'm just going to hold space here for everyone else who wrote something and just read it to yourself. You don't have to read it out loud, but just to kind of express gratitude for the writing that you did. Thank you, everybody, so much. And I'm going to pass this back to you, Jenny, to close us out, thinking about tips for using a nature journal.
Wonderful. And Delia, I love that. Just like leaving space for everyone to feel proud about their writing, even if they didn't share it out loud. Because friends, like I said, we started this workshop as strangers who didn't know each other. And now just by taking a few minutes to draw and a few minutes to write together, we have become a group, which is a really beautiful thing. I'm so proud of everyone who attended today and who was brave enough to make a drawing or do a writing with us. Those are very important things. So Delia and I just wanted to end our workshop very quickly with some tips for keeping a nature journal. We love to include photos of interesting objects in our journal. A photo of a feather or a leaf, for example, can be taped to a page. And this is, I mentioned the phrase leave no trace earlier. So this is going along with leave no trace best practices, where we want to leave our natural environment in the same condition that we found it. So we don't necessarily want to pick up a leaf to tape into our journal, but taking a photo and printing that out is a really nice way to make that memory too. The best observations in a nature journal are those that are unique to you. Take note of what specifically catches your eye, the light, the smells, the sounds, animals, even little bits of conversation. This is your journal and it should be about the things that you notice, and they're all the right things. Everything you notice in the outdoors is the right thing to write about or draw about. You can write about anything of interest that happens on an outing, and something that feels a little, maybe a little stressful, but it's very important, is try to write something every day, even if it's a 1-second drawing or 3 words to describe something you saw outside. Getting in the practice of documenting something you saw or experienced outdoors in your nature journal every single day is a really wonderful way to just take a little time to maybe decompress and celebrate something beautiful that you experienced. We have some resources that we thought were important to share for those of you who'd like to learn more about nature journaling. You can take a photo of this slide on the screen, How to Teach Nature Journaling, Curiosity, Wonder, and Attention, by John Muir Laws and Emily Ligren. And then also Keeping a Nature Journal, Discover a Whole New Way of Seeing the World Around You, by Claire Walker Leslie and Charles E. Roth. And I believe
that Claire was my teacher in graduate school, and she's awesome. So I think we might have time if one other person has a question, and otherwise I think we're going to turn it back to you, Vaughn.
I was going to share that there was a time that I was journaling, and an easy way for me to really remember my day was just writing a haiku about something meaningful to me that day. And it was while I was just starting my previous career with farming. And so I'd have some time in the field to kind of figure out those sentences, which traditionally it's 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and 5 syllables. And it's incredible how much you can remember when you think of an haiku in your head, and yeah, how simple that is for just day-to-day journaling. So I recommend that as a start too.
Wonderful.
Well, Delia and Jenny, thank you so very much for bringing your hearts and your insight into sharing this adventure session today. It was really wonderful, and sharing your nature journals. I loved all of the pictures that you shared with us, and I think that we all are walking away from this quite inspired ourselves. Feel free to please check out our remaining adventure series. Our next series will be in October. Right. Have a great day, everyone, or a great evening.